for the confirmation again. Let's begin. So in today's topic, and first of all, good morning for everyone who has joined today, even on Saturdays, and thanks for everyone joined. And our topic is Postgres replication and high availability methods. So, first, this is about myself. Already Pavitra said about myself, and I'm a database reliability engineer at MyDBOps. I'm having a 3 years of experience or working on and interested on databases like Postgres and MySQL and its related technology. And also active blogger. I have written many blogs about the futures and troubleshooting on Postgres and MySQL. And this is about our MyDB of services. We are providing services in two forms. One is database consulting and another one is managed database services. Currently, we are focusing on top open source databases like MySQL, MongoDB, and Postgres on both on-premise and cloud environment. Okay, just a second.
Oh boy, my voice is fine now. Can you confirm something? Okay. So, and other than that, so before getting into the topic, this is about a short notice to the users who are all using Postgres 9.5. Postgres 9.5 is the currently available oldest version in Postgres, and it is going to end of life on February 11, 2021. So end of life means we can't get any more bug fixes or community support for the particular version. And also it is the time to upgrade those users to latest release. We have current latest release is 13, which have lot of features on its internals as well as on replication. And for the AWS users who are all using Postgres 9.5, it is mandatory for them to upgrade their Postgres databases before March 16, 2021. Otherwise, their instances will get automatically upgraded by the Postgres team. So make sure you have test your application and plan for your upgradation before March 16. And this is our today's agenda. And first we will look on what basic about replication, and further on what are the various modes of replication available in Postgres, and what are the various types of replication available in Postgres, and finally we will look on how to achieve high availability using those configured replicas. So let's start with replication. So it is about the basic what is replication. So basically replication means it's a continuous process of continuous copying of data changes from one database server to the another database server. So let's say if you are having a application and our application is connected to a primary server, so we will make some changes or writing. So we want to those changes to be replicated on other server as well. So process of making this configuration is called replication. So why do we need it? So this is for only two purposes. Replication for one is for high availability and another one is for load balancing. But major is for high availability only. Let's say we are connected our application to a primary server. Consider our primary goes down. So we don't have any other choice if we are having only one server. It will be a single point of failure for us. So to eliminate the single point of failure, we need to have redundancy of our same servers. This can be achieved by only replication. This concept is not only Postgres, the same concept will be applicable for every databases. So replication is mandatory to achieve high availability. And if we have some replica servers, in case our one of the primary server goes down, we can even run our business by using other replicas. That's what we need to maintain high availability. And load balancing. Load balancing means if you have many replicas, we can use those replicas to reduce our load on the primary server. That's what called load balancing. So instead of hitting all our requests directly to the primary server, we can split some of those writes to the replicas. It will reduce the load on primary, and also we can serve more requests and we can handle more traffic as well by using load balancing. So before getting into this topic deeper, we need to understand few terminologies that will be used in the replication world. So here are few. First one is important thing is write agar log, or further onwards we can say it as wall. So it is a transaction log file. So write agar log is called transaction log file. In every databases, it names differ. Let's say in MySQL, we will say it is in redo log. In Postgres, we are saying the same transaction log as write agar log. So why it is means whenever we are making any transactions on the Postgres server, it will be written on transaction log. That means write agar log for purpose called maintaining atomicity and durability. So consider a transaction. This is our transaction contains 5 statements. Each statement will create a new wall record on our wall file. So simply we can say our wall file just contains set of wall records. Each wall record will contain set of changes made on the database. This is about the wall file. By default, each wall file will be 16 MB. It is, we can change it, but most of the servers, and it is not necessary to change this variable. So mostly it will be 16 MB on every server. And where it will be located is, it will be located in pgxlog inside the data directory. If it is a Postgres version less than 10, or as pg underscore wall, if it is Postgres version greater than or equal to 10. And what is the purpose of write agar log is, it is for 3 things. One is for crash recovery. As I said earlier, it is for maintaining durability. Then in case of any crash, it will perform crash recovery by using these write agar logs only. And point in time recovery. So first point in time recovery means, consider we have accidentally deleted some records at 12 o'clock. So we want to restore our database up to 11:59. So in the process of restoring that to particular point in time, that is called point in time recovery. It can, in Postgres, it can be achieved only by using write agar log. And of course, it is main concept for replication. Without write agar log, we can't configure replication on Postgres. So it is mandatory. If you are coming from MySQL background, you know how much important binary log is for replication. It is almost same like for Postgres in replication. And another one is primary server, or we can say it as master. The server which where we are making direct writes, those server are called primary server, and this server will only accept the changes. And standby or secondary server, or else we can say it as slave, the server which is following up the primary and continuously applying the changes. Those server is called secondary server. In Postgres, we can split our secondary or standby into further 2 forms. One is warm standby and another one is hot standby. Warm standby means that we can use this standby only for as a backup server. We can't use this for serving any kind of traffic. Just it will be only for backup server. Whenever our primary server goes down, we can promote this primary. Other than that, it won't be useful. And hot standby is having one more advantage than warm standby. What does that mean? We can serve, it will serve read queries. So we can transfer some of our read traffic to this server. So that is the advantage. So it is better to have hot standby than warm standby, because we can also use it for load balancing. And one more term is called failover. Failover means that whenever our primary server goes down abnormally, we need to point our application to another backup server. So this process of promoting another server to as another backup server to replace the primary, this process is called failover. So failover is very important to maintain high availability. How much quickly we are doing failover, then how much that much we will face downtime. If we are doing our failover very quickly, means our downtime will be very less, or else our downtime will be also huge. So now getting, it's an important topic, replication modes. What are the various replication modes available in the Postgres? Here we are having only 2 replication modes, synchronous replication and asynchronous replication. In case if it is in MySQL means we are having 3, also semi-synchronous. It is not available in Postgres. So first let's see what is asynchronous replication and about its advantages and disadvantages. In asynchronous replication, whenever a transaction is considered complete, it needs to commit only on the primary server. It doesn't care about its replicas. if you are committing a transaction, our transaction will commit only on the primary server. Secondary servers may be in sync or may be out of sync. So this is the diagram illustrating the asynchronous replication. Consider we are making a commit on primary server at time X. It is not necessary to be the same time on secondary one and secondary two. Definitely it is asynchronous. It will take time to reach the secondary one and secondary two. So let's say in secondary one it is committing at Y and secondary two it is committing at Z. So difference between the commit time, that is called X minus Y, will be the replication lag for the secondary and primary. And X minus Z is the replication lag for primary and secondary two. So this much of replication lag will happen whenever we are using asynchronous replication. So what is the advantages using asynchronous replication is there is no overhead because we are just going to make commit on only a one server. So it is doesn't cause any overhead to us, and also write performance will be good in asynchronous replication. But disadvantages is there is a chance of getting data loss whenever we are promoting our secondary to primary. So consider this scenario. We are committing at primary at time X. So before sending those transactions to secondary, consider our master getting crashed before sending it. Our secondaries won't have those results. So what happened? Whenever we are promoting any one of the available secondary to primary, we will lose the particular commit. So it will be minor loss, but if it is a very critical database means needs to be noted. So this data loss can be avoided by using synchronous replication. In synchronous replication, what happens if you are making a commit? It will not commit only on a single database. It will need to commit on multiple databases, even on its replica. Then only our client will get acknowledgement as databases committed. So what happened in this means our replicas will always be in sync because there is no lag concept here. So our replicas always in sync and it can be promoted as primary at any time. So here is the diagram. We are making an insert. You can see at all the servers we are committing at the same time. So that's the reason there is no lag concept here. And also our client will also get acknowledgement as commit only when all the servers got committed. Advantage is there is no data loss because we are going to have our data on multiple servers. We can promote our any of the available servers to master. So there is no data loss here. But a disadvantage is there is a heavier overhead because we are just making a single commit. What happened here is it needs to do lot of network round trip to reach the replicas for a single commit. So if you are comparing the right performance of synchronous and asynchronous replication, definitely synchronous replication will fail because of this overhead. So here we need to decide which one we need to go for our production server, maybe synchronous or application. It depends on our data criticality. If you are giving importance to our performance, we could go for asynchronous application, or else if we need to more consistency on our data, then we need to go for synchronous application. And another thing is what are the various types of replication available on Postgres. So Postgres replication can be mainly classified into two. One is physical and another one is logical. These are the major classification. Physical replication can be achieved by two methods. One is log sweeping and another one is streaming replication. And logical can be achieved by only one method, that is called publisher subscriber model. So first we will discuss about the difference between what is physical replication and logical replication. Then we will discuss each of the one types. So first is physical replication. This is called, this physical replication send the data to the secondary server in the form of binary format, not in the form of sequence. It will send the form of binary format. This binary will contain disk block level changes made by the primary server. Consider this example. We are making a commit. We are making an insert. So this insert will be written in the wall file in the form of at offset something at some position of particular disk page, it will add a record. So what happened? The primary will send the same data to the secondary server. Secondary will also apply the same thing in the wall by using the wall file. It will apply the same thing. So what is the major thing is our primary and secondary will be the exact copy, will be almost same even on our disk to block level as well. So that is the advantage of having physical replication. It will be almost same like both the servers. If you are trying to find out a physical location for a particular record from both servers, it will be also equal. And another one is logical. Logical will replicate data in the form of SQLs. So data we are getting in will be in the form of SQL, and our primary server replicate data to the secondary also in the form of SQLs. Consider I am committing a query, insert into test value of now. In secondary also it will replicate in the form of SQL as well. So this is the difference between physical and logical replication. If you are sending data in binary changes, it will be called as physical, or else in form of sequence, we can say it as logical replication. In Postgres, physical replication can be achieved by two things. One is log shipping and another one is streaming replication. Here log shipping is the oldest one and streaming replication is the new. So we will see each one in detail. So first one is log shipping. It is available from Postgres version 8.2 itself. So if we want to configure replication based on log shipping, we need to configure wall archival on the Postgres server. If we don't have configured wall archive, it is not possible to perform log shipping. So to perform wall archive, we need to have archive command on our primary server. So archive should be enabled and archive command should be configured. So what this archive command will do means, archive command, once our wall file, systemd wall file is getting filled, it will take the wall file and send it to some common location which can be taken by our standby. So on standby, restore command needs to be configured. Restore command will be configured on recovery.conf file. So restore command, what it will do means, it will take the wall file which were put by the primary server and apply on its own. So this process is called wall shipping. So this block diagram explains in detail. Just consider primary server. We are making some commits. So what happened? Those commits or transactions will be written on the pgx log or pg underscore wall file in the walls. So once the wall file is getting filled, archive command will get triggered. So those archive command will be sent to the wall files to the NFS or archive server. Somewhere it can be achieved by the standby. So on standby, once it detects the new wall file, it will use the restore command to restore the wall files. So this is the process of log shipping. Here the advantage is we don't need any direct connection to the primary server. So here you can see standby server is connecting to only to the NFS server, NFS port or archive server only. It is not making any direct connection to the primary server. So it will be helpful on case if you have hundreds of replicas, it will be helpful. And no replication user is not required because we are not going to connect to the database, so no user required. And disadvantage is replication lag will be always high because it is going to send wall file one by one. So once wall file is getting completed, then only archive command will trigger, then only the standby will apply. So our standby will always be in lag of depends on our wall file size. And also it won't support any synchronous mode because of its huge lag. To avoid all these things, Postgres has introduced one more technique that is called streaming replication, which was introduced in the version Postgres 9. So instead of those sending and applying, Postgres directly send the wall files to the standby servers, whatever it is connected. So, and also in recovery standbys, recovery.config, we can find a variable that is called primary con info. It will contain the connection info. So by using this connection info, standby server will directly reaching the database, primary database, and it is block based. So previously we have seen log shipping, it is file based because our primary will send complete wall file to the secondary, but here it is block based. instead of sending wall file, it will send each and every block immediately to the standby server. So let's see that. And before that, there will be three additional process will be always running. If we have configured streaming replication, one is wall receiver, which will be run on standby server to receive the wall files. And another process is called startup process, which is also running on the standby server. This process is take the responsibility to apply all the wall files received by the wall receiver. And wall sender will be running on the primary server. It will collect all the required wall files and send it to the secondary servers. So this is the connection protocol will be used by streaming replication when we are starting. So secondary standby server only initiate the connection. So start connection, primary connection info. So once the primary will reach the connection, it will ask for the authentication. So once the secondary will respond to the connection with authentication, and once successful authentication, secondary will ask for the primary to start sending the wall file. If everything is fine, primary will start sending the wall file. If the wall file does not exist on the primary means, we will get an error. And this is called, this block diagram will explain about the process. So we are making changes and it will be written on the wall records on the primary server. So those wall records will be collected by the wall sender. Wall sender will send the wall files, wall records to the wall receiver process. Wall receiver will collect all those and put it on the own server. And then startup process will collect all the wall file and apply on it. So this is the typical process of streaming replication. So here advantage compared with the log shipping is replication lag can be much reduced because it is not going to send file, it is going to send block by block. So our replication lag can be much reduced. And another advantage is it supports synchronous replication. And also this is the only one supports synchronous replication in Postgres. And we can use it for instant failover. And some of the requirement is it requires direct connection to the database. So it is good if you are having some one or two replicas. If you are having hundreds of replicas, it is not to connect all the secondaries to the primary because it will create network bandwidth usage high. Every standby needs a wall file, so it is not possible to do that. So if we have hundreds of server, we can go by cascading replication. So setting up a primary and have some intermediate secondaries and then connecting all our secondaries to the intermediate secondary. So this will reduce network overhead on the primary server. And also it is directly connecting to the database. So it requires a database user. So here, these are some of the limitations of both streaming and log shipping replication. Streaming and log shipping replication can be done only when the primary and secondary instance are using the same Postgres version. Even let's say if you are using 10 Postgres version, your secondary should also be the version 10. If it is not possible to configure the different versions, and also architecture also should be same. If it is 32-bit master, then slave should be also 32-bit. That's the thing. And we don't have any granularity to send particular data. If you want to send a data means you need to send the entire database. If you are in need of only one database to replicate, it is not possible to do that on physical replication. And on standby, it is not possible to make any writes. Standby will always be in crash recovery mode, so we can't do any writes on it. So, and also to overcome these kind of things, Postgres has introduced a new replication method that is called log shipping. In publisher or subscriber model, Postgres 10, it was introduced in the Postgres 10. It is it has two things. One is publication and another one is subscriber. So publication means that it needs to be mentioned on the source server, and subscription needs to be mentioned on the destination server. Publication command will contain what are the tables and databases that needs to be replicated. Let's say I am on database test, I need to replicate table T1 and T2. So I need to mention it on publication on the source server. So those source server, we can say it is called publisher. And on subscription, destination server, or we can say or subscriber, connection details those connection details connecting to the subscribe publisher. So that needs to be mentioned on the connection details in the subscription side. Likewise, in streaming replication, here also two processes will run. One is Vault Sender and another one is Logical Replication Launcher. Vault Sender will be running on publisher side. So it will collect all the record Vault records and to the replica. And Logical Replication Launcher, what it will do means it will execute those transactions sent by the Vault Sender on the subscriber side. So this diagram will help us to understand the flow of working. So first subscriber will initiate the transaction. Subscriber will reach out the publication to start the stream replication. So publication will start the Vault Sender process based on our command we have triggered before. So here we have used only tables T1 and T2. So our Vault Sender will start collecting the Vault files for the particular tables T1 and T2 and start decoding to SQLs. And so Vault Sender send those SQLs to the logical replication launcher in the secondary. Secondary will receive those SQLs and execute on those. So this is the process of working for logical replication. So advantage here is when compared with the physical replication is we have granularity to replicate particular data. So we can send even a particular table or particular database to replicate to secondary server. And also our secondary can be writable. We can write on our secondary, it won't be in read-only mode further. And we can replicate across different versions or different architectures. If you're replicating means we can use it for upgradation as well. Let's say if you are using version 11 and if you want to upgrade it to 12, but you can configure replication between 11 and 12. The same is not possible on physical replication. And disadvantage is it won't support any DDL. So consider you are replicating a database from primary to secondary, and if you are creating a table on some day means it won't replicate to our secondary. So you need to make sure you have created or upgraded the DDLs separately on primary and secondary, and it won't suit for failover. So make sure you are not using logical replication for high availability. It can be useful only for these kind of data testing or UAT purpose only. It won't be useful because it won't have exactly data, whatever data it contains on the primary. So if you're doing means there is a chance of we can miss some data. So which one we can use it on our production means it completely depends on our needs. If you want to achieve higher VT and you can use it for failover means you should go for physical replication, or else if you don't want to achieve higher VT and you are going to test only for particular part of data for replication, or you want granularity and you want to make writes on your secondary server means you can go for logical replication. So once we have done the replication part, it doesn't mean we are good with the higher ability because in Postgres, we don't have any inbuilt mechanism for automatic failover. So consider this one. This is our setup, primary server and secondaries. We are having some more number of replicas and we are making writes on our primary server and reads on all our secondaries. So let's say if our primary goes down, we can't make any writes further. So what will happen? Postgres don't have any inbuilt failover mechanism, so it won't promote any one of our replicas to primary. So we will face downtime for us. So in this case, we need to manually promote any one of our secondary to primary, and also we need to point all our remaining secondaries to back to the primary. So this will take more time and also causes increased downtime. So to avoid this, we need to have some kind of a failure mechanism that needs to be automated so that we can reduce our downtime. So for this, we can make some scripts, but we are not sure how much reliable. And also there are many open source IoT frameworks available on the internet. So we can use that one as well. So here I have listed many of the few IoT frameworks that are popular. First one is Patroni, and it is the most popular one and used by many of the people. And Replication Manager, and PAF means Postgres Automatic Failover, and PG Putto. So what is the difference between remaining two and the first three and pgpool2 is pgpool2 can act as a load balancer as well. So if you want to, some kind of SQL awareness load balancer, you can also use pgpool as well. So in this example, we will look on what are the features of Patroni. So this, if you are using Patroni, this will be your typical architecture. So let's say we are having a single primary and two secondary, means our Patroni needs to be installed on all these servers, on more primary as well as secondary servers. So each Patroni will connect to the respective databases and collecting the metrics, and it will send to the common server, that is called a configuration server, we can say. So each and every server will send the metrics very frequently to the particular server. So in case our primary goes down, remaining server Patroni will taken care of automatically promoting any one of the available secondary to the primary. And also it will taken care of replication lag in case any one of our secondary is in huge lag. So it won't promote this particular secondary. It will use the secondary server which is in sync. So this much of knowledge it has. So this is about the features of the Patroni. Patroni will do continuous monitoring of our database servers, and also based on our availability of the server, it will do automatic failover. So no need of manual intervention here. And important thing is it is very easy to add or remove the node. In case if you are getting some new more sales and you need to add more replicas, means you need to just make a configuration and just add it. Taking backup and adding it to the cluster, it will be automatically taken care by Patroni. And in case our primary goes down, when it comes back, it will be automatically added to the cluster standby. So we don't need to do any manual intervention. Those wall files will get automatically transferred to the primary and it will be automatically added. Other than automatic it will automatically do our cluster restart at a particular time. So these are the features of having Patroni, and it is one of the hierarchy framework. There are many things available on as open source. So depends on our use case, we can use any one of it. So here there are few points to note. So if you are using for any open source tool, make sure you have completely tested it, and and it should be very easy to configure and maintenance. Otherwise, just having hierarchy framework will give some more advantage to us. And try to use load balancing, even if it is application of load balancing also fine, or else we can use some kind of load balancer like pgpool too. And frequent DR activity to make sure we have some good auto failover mechanism, and maintain backups. We should not confuse our replicas to backups because we should, in case of you are firing a daily query, it will also replicate in your replicas immediately. So we can't use those replicas as backups. So we should use some separate as backups, and proper monitoring. The monitoring should be done not only for OS and SQLs, and also should be for the hierarchy frameworks. If Patroni goes down, then we will face downtime as well. So we should have proper monitoring for them too. So that's it, guys.